Imagine yourself upon a great battlefield. The ground shudders, not from the march of men, but from the weight of forces unseen. There is a tension in the air, sharp and heavy, though you cannot name its source. The war is not waged with weapons, nor fought upon the plains of the world. It rages within you, a battle for your very soul. You are no mere onlooker, no passive observer. You are the warrior, the key figure, the battlefield itself. Have you ever found that the closer you draw to God, the steeper the path seems to climb? Every step of faith seems shadowed by trial, every movement toward His calling obstructed by walls too tall to scale. Why should this be? Why does pursuing the purposes of God come cloaked in hardship? These questions torment the heart, and yet their answers hold a startling and profound truth. When God prepares you, it is rarely without pain. But not because He delights in your suffering, no. It is because He is reshaping you, fortifying you, readying you for something far beyond what you can presently imagine. Consider gold in its raw form. What worth has it until it passes through fire? In the furnace, impurities melt away, leaving the gleaming brilliance that was hidden. So it is with you. Every trial, every sorrow is not a punishment but a process sacred, though agonizing, where weakness is turned into strength, fear into faith, doubt into a trust that cannot be shaken. Scripture speaks plainly. The lives of those who were called and chosen by God were not without seasons of breaking. Joseph, gifted with dreams of greatness, was thrust into the depths of the pit and the isolation of the prison. David, anointed as king, found himself pursued through wilderness caves, clinging to promises that seemed impossibly far. Even Jesus Christ, in the Garden of Gethsemane, bore the crushing weight of the world's redemption and prayed amidst drops of blood like sweat. And yet, what if that very garden of anguish in your life is not evidence of God's absence but proof of His nearness? What if your pain is, in fact, the refining fire by which He shapes you into a vessel of His purpose? God does not abandon His own. Pain, though unwelcome, serves a mighty role in our preparation. It strips away the distractions, removes our false securities, and leaves us dependent upon Him alone. Have you noticed how the things you once leaned on may crumble when the pressure comes? Perhaps this is His hand, pulling away what will not endure, to anchor you in what always will, His unshakable truth. Yet let us not mistake this pain as cruel or pointless. No, it is pain with a purpose. The preparation is for a higher calling, a battle not waged with the flesh but fought in the unseen realms. The strength required for this task is not physical but spiritual, and spiritual strength is forged, not in comfort, but in trials. Imagine a blacksmith at his forge. The iron, though struck, is not harmed without reason. Blow after blow shapes it into something extraordinary, something capable of enduring the fight. Would you wield the sword too soon? No, for an untested blade would shatter in the fray. So, too, are we made ready. If God placed the weight of your calling upon your shoulders now, would you stand beneath it, or would you falter? Through pain, wisdom grows, faith strengthens, and resilience is born. Trust, therefore, that even in the trials you face today, He is crafting something eternal, a purpose far greater than you might dare to hope. As the psalmist declared, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." That valley is no place to remain, it is the training ground for the mountaintop. Every tear shed, every burden borne, brings you nearer to the fulfillment of what God has designed. But how can we endure such a road, steep and full of pain? Only through surrender. Lay down the desire to control. Entrust yourself wholly to the One whose ways, though higher and often inscrutable, are always good. Say, as Christ did, "Not my will, but yours, be done." The battle is his. The victory is secured. What remains is for you to trust and to persevere. Have you ever paused to wonder, what if pain is not a void where God is absent, but the evidence of his overwhelming nearness? Psalm chapter 34 verse 18 offers this comfort. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. It doesn't promise a life without suffering, but instead the presence of God within it. Pain can feel like a barren wasteland, devoid of hope, but even in the driest deserts, streams of living water can flow. In those moments of anguish, God is not distant. He is closer than ever, walking beside you, lifting you, cradling you in his loving arms. Consider Hagar's story in Genesis chapter 16. Rejected and cast into the wilderness with her child, Hagar felt hopeless and abandoned. Yet God met her in her despair, revealing himself as El Roi, the God who sees. He did not instantly erase her trials but gave her strength and hope to endure. The same God who saw Hagar sees you. He hears your cries, knows your pain, and treasures your whispered prayers. He has not forgotten you. You are fully known, deeply loved, and entirely held in his hands. Pain has a mysterious way of redirecting us toward him. When life is comfortable, self-reliance becomes easy. But in hardship, our dependence shifts from ourselves to the God who sustains us. Through suffering, God draws us nearer, teaching us to trust him more fully. Paul understood this deeply. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9, he recalls God's words, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." In those weakest moments, when all self-sufficiency crumbles, God's strength shines brightest. Like a potter shaping clay, God uses pain to transform us, molding us into the likeness of Christ. This process is not random, and though it is often excruciating, it is imbued with purpose. Romans chapter 8 verse 28 reassures us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Not some things, but all things, every tear, every sorrow, every breaking point. Nothing escapes his sovereign hand. The crucifixion of Jesus offers the ultimate example of God's power to bring beauty from pain. At first glance, the cross seemed to be the ultimate defeat. But through that pain came humanity's redemption, the greatest triumph of all time. If God could use the darkness of Calvary to birth new life for all, imagine what he can do with the burdens you carry. The challenge is learning to trust that pain has a divine purpose. When the temptation to ask, "Why is this happening to me?" arises, choose instead to ask, "What are you doing through this, Lord?" When you bring your pain to God, you will find that he is already there, actively working to turn your trials into triumphs, for his glory and your good. False dependencies. Breaking free to lean fully on God. Human nature clings to a sense of control, finding security in people, possessions, and plans. We lean on these things, believing they will uphold us. Yet inevitably, they fail. Relationships fray, possessions fade, and even our most carefully crafted plans unravel. When this happens, God invites us to let go of false dependencies and lean solely on him. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5-6 challenges us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." False dependencies can only sustain us for so long. Only God provides unshakable security. The Israelites' journey through the wilderness demonstrates this truth vividly. Freed from Egypt, they struggled to trust God's provision, longing for the familiarity of bondage rather than the uncertainty of freedom. God allowed them to experience hunger, providing manna daily to teach them dependence on him alone. As Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 3 recounts, He humbled you, causing you to hunger and then feeding you with manna to teach you that man does not live on bread alone but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Whether our dependencies rest in relationships, wealth, or achievements, they ultimately pale in comparison to God's eternal provision. When He removes these crutches, it is not cruelty but compassion, a loving push toward dependence on the only foundation that cannot be shaken. The act of releasing these dependencies is not one of loss but of freedom. In Psalm chapter 62 verse 5-6, David declares, "Yes, my soul, find rest in God, my hope comes from Him. Truly He is my rock and my salvation, He is my fortress, I will not be shaken." When you let go of the temporal and place your trust wholly in God, you'll find a peace that cannot be bought, a strength that will never fade. Even the deepest relationships cannot bear the weight of being your ultimate source of security. When loved ones falter or let you down, remember Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10, "Do not fear, for I am with you, do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." God Himself will support you where others cannot. This surrender is not about rejecting human support or worldly blessings, it is about ensuring that your heart's anchor is in the eternal, not the temporal. Jesus said, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven." Matthew chapter 6 verse 19-20. Releasing your grip on the fleeting makes room for the eternal. Fixing our eyes on eternity pain narrows our vision, drawing our attention to immediate discomfort. But what if these struggles are preparing us for a reward so grand that today's suffering cannot compare? In 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 17-18, Paul writes, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen but on what is unseen." Life is a vapor, a fleeting moment in the vast expanse of eternity. Yet, within this moment, God is preparing you for something eternal. Trials refine us, like fire purifying gold, burning away impurities to reveal something valuable and enduring. Moses turned his back on the comforts of Egypt for the sake of his calling. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 26 tells us, "He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward." This perspective calls us to live with eternity in mind. Jesus endured the agony of the cross because of the joy set before him, the redemption of the world. Hebrews chapter 12 verse 2. The pain of the present was nothing compared to the glory ahead. To focus on eternity, remind yourself daily that this world is not your home. Let God's promises anchor your soul. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain. Revelation chapter 21 verse 4. Release the distractions that entangle you, possessions, ambitions, or unhealthy attachments, and run the race marked out for you. Hebrews chapter 12 verse 1. Serve others and build treasures in heaven. Hold on to hope, knowing that God's glory will far surpass the hardships of today. Romans chapter 8 verse 18. As you face the struggles of life, remember that pain is not the end of your story. It is the refining fire of God's eternal purpose. Surrender to His process. Trust in His plans. Fix your heart on the eternal reward that awaits, for the glory to come will make all suffering worthwhile. God's hand is upon you, working all things for your good and His glory. Press on, endure, and stand firm. You are being prepared for a destiny beyond your wildest imagination.